Okay, so this is the next in the series of tutorials on Intro to Swift Programming, and we're advancing our game of War, the card game. And I have some new features I added here. Let me just show you what it looks like, and then we'll go over and I'll show you how I created this. So you'll notice right away that I have 3 new labels here. And when we hit start, the game begins. And another thing we do right here is we show who won the latest deal. So we did, so we're green here. And now the deck has been dealt. 2 cards are missing, so we're down to 50 cards left in the deck. You have 2. The computer has 0 at this point. We keep clicking this to deal the next one. Computer won, so now it's 2-2. And so on and so on. And you see the deck is shrinking. And we're advancing in the game, and you can see what the position is of your amount of cards that you've won right here to what the computer has. So that's pretty cool. And it'll probably take one more tutorial to kind of finish this up and have an end of game solution. So let me show you though. So most of this is going to focus on arrays because that's what we're using to hold all this information. So one thing I did, though, I'll go back to the storyboard, is I just drug over some labels here. One for the total for the computer card, made it a little larger so there's space to have the number of cards show. The deck, it's total amount of cards left in the deck, and then your total cards. All right, I'm going to delete this, but you should know at this point how to drag over that. And then I simply had the little icon up here to, control drag these over here and create these outlets, right? And I hadn't done this already. I also created this outlet. That we had not created that yet in the tutorial. We did though for the computer's card, so that's already done. The computer card is called My Label, so I simply called this one My Label 2. See that right here? Okay. So go ahead and do that and create your outlets. And like I said, let me go back in here and just show you so you have the same name. So I called it computer total, deck total, and your total to represent those respectively. So then the second part, though, what I did is I created, the second step I should say, is I created a new array called card spot. That is an array that is a parallel array that complements the card deck array. And this one is of type int, and it's simply each element in here represents a spot in this array. So there's 52 elements in here representing a deck of cards, and so there's 52 elements from 0 to 51 in here. And the whole point of this is so we want to make sure that when we deal the cards, we don't deal the same card again. So what we're going to do is pick a random spot in this array that's going to represent a spot here. And then after we've dealt that, we're going to remove it from this array, which is a nice feature. With Swift, it's a lot easier to use arrays than it was in Objective-C. At least I believe so. So we'll get into that in a second. So the next thing, though, is I create 2 more arrays here that are empty to start out with. That's how you declare them. You just have the equals and in square brackets the type, and then open close parentheses to create these empty arrays. And we are going to add append to this the appropriate cards when we win or lose. Well, actually, when we win, it gets added here. When the computer wins, it gets added to this array. Okay. All this code, as usual, is going to be provided to you. I'm actually going to have this text file which has all the code and kind of steps out where you each step in this tutorial. Okay, and so we're not going to do anything in the view did load, but if we go down to our IB action, you'll see that I set the color of the background label that is represented on the storyboard right here to red because we're going to change it every time to green to indicate which person won, you or the computer. And so we have to reset it back to red, though, each time, so it doesn't remain green. Okay, so that's what we're doing right here. Part 5 here, we are getting our random numbers, which, remember, this we just changed it. This line before it produced a random number between 0 and 52 and 0 and 51, I guess. And now we created a method that we're calling called getRand2. And let me show you that method. It's right here. And the point of this, so before we just had this, and actually inside here we had 52, if you recall. But I've changed that now to represent the size of our card spot array, which is going to shrink as we deal. So that's why we have it represented in here. So we'll get a random number between 0 and the size of that array, and then after we pick that random spot, we're going to remove that spot so it cannot be picked again. Right? Does that make sense? And then we're going to save that whatever. So say like 4 is the random number that's produced. That would represent 0, 1, 2, 3. That would represent 3. So that's the spot that would be picked up here is what's happening. So that would be right there. Okay? And then that's removed though. Number 3 is removed, so 4 will slide down. So that's what happens. When you remove something from an array in Swift, it slides down. So now 3 no longer would exist after we remove it. And so it would be 0, 1, 2, 4. And so if 3 came up again as the random number, it would actually represent 4. And then that would go to this spot here. So that way we kind of can control and make sure that we never deal the same card in one game. So that's what's going on here, and then I'm just returning it here. This is kind of how you create a method, a function, if you will, that returns a value. So you declare the type of value that you want to return, in this instance an int, and we're going to return that. So if you go back up here into our IB action, this is where that number is returned and stored here. And then remember, we do this whole thing where we assign it to the card. This we had already done. This is already done. We just changed it so that we're calling a method now instead of the random number generator. And again, the whole point is so that we don't have any repeats. Okay, and so then hopefully that is clear. I explained that well, because now the next thing that we want to look at is let me scroll down right here. So we have this test to see basically who won that deal. And so we were doing this before. Right here we have it to test to see if there was war. But now we're testing to see, okay, there's 3 different scenarios. The computer can win, you can win, or there can be war. And remember, this just is a little if statement. In each side of that greater than sign is basically determining what the value of the card that was dealt is. And then, so if the computer won, we're going to store both cards, right, to the computer card 1 array. So that's what's happening there. So that gets stored there. Okay, and then we change the label accordingly to green to indicate that the computer has won, and then vice versa, we do the same if you won. We store those cards in your array, and then then at the end of the day we actually change the color to green to represent. Now I'm not doing anything yet with the war. That's going to be in the next tutorial, where we'll actually examine the war here and store the winner of the war, all the cards in their appropriate array. So hopefully I didn't go through that too fast. Please let me know if you have any further questions. And then so the last thing though that we do is I actually, right before the end of the IB action, I use those new labels that we created to just indicate the current state of the game. So this is the deck total, which remember shrinks every time that we deal a card, and then your total, which will increase based upon whether you win, and the computer total, which will increase based upon whether the computer wins. So one more time to see this in action. if we deal, we get a winner, and you'll see the deck should shrink. Now, I'm not accounting for if there's a tie yet, but for right now, you'll see. And then we have to come to an end of game. We'll declare a winner once all the cards have been dealt. So that's in the next tutorial. I hope that was helpful. This is I think it's a pretty good example of how you can use arrays, declare them, remove elements from, and add to arrays. Thanks. Subscribe.